The activity that we're going to work on today is the paper circuit. We're trying to build a constellation or anything we want in the sky. We want to make a circuit like in the entire page and then like have a bunch of LEDs with the copper wires and use the batteries to light them up. So battery works as a power supply, and in this activity which supplies the power for the LEDs to light up, and we have the copper wire, which is the conductive path through which the electricity goes through, and we're going to use that to pass the electricity from the batteries to the LEDs. So the first thing that we want to do, and we want to encourage the students to do, is by starting with the schematics. So schematics can be anything, like however you want to draw out your circuit. So let's say I want to try to make a constellation. So I'm going to make something like this and like this, and this is going to be like a constellation, and what I want to do is like make it double, so that at least something like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but one of the major things that schematic helps us is to realize something called polarity. So polarity is the positive and the negative side for our battery, the LEDs that we have, and it's very important to keep track of that throughout the activity so that we all of our LEDs light up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one side of this line positive and the other side to be negative. So this is called a schematic. Schematic is a drawing or a sketch that you create before making the actual circuit, so that you kind of have a vision of what you're trying to do. So we want to encourage the kids to do that because it takes them to the process of like actually building the circuit. And now what I'm going to use is the copper wires. So copper wires are the conductive path, as I mentioned before, and we don't want to rip the copper wire at any place, because if we rip the copper wire, that would increase the resistance, which affects the electricity passing through the conductive path. For example, like if you're walking and then suddenly you have a huge puddle, so that kind of causes like you to like take another path, or like if there is no any other path, you have to return. So it's something like that with the electricity, that if you cut the copper wire and try to tape it with other type of tape or just a copper tape, then it creates restriction in the flow of electrons. So now what I'm going to do is take the copper wire, it peels off like this, and I'm going to place the copper wire on top of my circuits. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but kind of like you want to follow your schematics because it helps, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. So if you see here, I didn't cut the copper tape, rather I just like kind of crumbled it in, or like twist and turns. And now is the point where you can rip it. So none of the place here, as you can see, I didn't rip the copper wire anywhere except this and this, so the two ends. So the copper wire that we placed right now is going to be the positive side, and this is where we're going to connect the positive side of the battery and also the positive side of the LED. And I'm going to do the same thing but on the negative side now. So as you can see, this is the negative side, so we're going to place all the negative sides, so it goes around like this over here. I just put some extra over here because I want to show something at the end. And there is a positive side here, which is all the positive side. So now, one of the things that we want to, now it's the time to put the LEDs. So we have the LEDs with us. So the LEDs have the positive and the negative side, as you can see. The positive side of the LED is the longer wire, so the longer leg, and then the negative is the shorter one. So what we are going to do is we're going to try to put our thumb over here and try to split it like this so that we don't like ruin the LEDs. And what we are going to do is put the positive side of the LED on the positive wire. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the LED over here, tape it. So for the tape, we're going to use the regular tape. We don't have to use the copper tape for this, but we just have to make sure that we don't use too much of this, because this also acts as a resistance. So if we use too much of this, then we might be interrupting the electricity. So I'm just going to use a very small amount, and so now as we place the one LED, like you might think that we want to place all the LEDs at the same time and check with the battery, but what we can do for the for I think kind of like making sure that our LEDs work is that we want to check with one battery first, like with one LED. So if our first LED works, then we know that it will work. So let's see something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the positive side over here, and see the negative side will be touching the battery. So this shows that our LEDs work, and because we completed the circuit with the positive on the positive side and the negative on the negative side. You can either put the battery at the center, or you can put the batteries over here. Whichever one is perfectly fine. Okay, so now we can place another LED and see same thing. Okay, so sometimes the circuit can get loose with the tape or something, so if you try to press it, you can see that both of the LEDs work. And you can either use one battery or two batteries, depending on how bright you want. So if I put the second battery over here and then like try to place it, the brightness increases. So as you go about putting all these LEDs, your circuit will look something like this. This is the one that I already prepared, and it has all the LEDs. As you can see, there is a positive side and then there is a negative side. And for this one, I put the battery at the end over here rather than putting it at the center, and it works perfectly the same way. These are all the positive side of the LEDs. That's over there, and there is all the negative side of the LED. So I'm going to put the positive side of the battery over here because it also has the positive and the negative side, and I'm going to do this, and then all the light bulbs to light up. You might be wondering why there is a place where where it just doesn't connect, or like we have to like put our fingers like that, because we want to make it as a switch so that whenever we want to turn on the light, we turn on the light, or whenever we want to turn off the light, we can just remove the tape. So for overall to remember some of the stuff for this activity is that do not cut the copper wires at all, except the part where you're going to place the batteries. When you have the LED, when you're trying to bend this, don't bend it like all the way from the center. If you can see, there is a little bit of something over here where it's like dent or something, so you want to put your finger over there and then fold it so that it folds properly, and then it also saves the LED.